Dorothy, I just lost my screen.
Oh no. Okay, hang on just a second.
I got it.
You got it? Okay, great. Okay. All right, well, let's, all right, good. I'm glad, Frank. All right, folks, again, welcome so much to our Alabama Aging Resource Workshop. I am Dorothy Dorton. I am with AARP Alabama, and I'm very pleased to be working with the local area agency on aging with the South Alabama Regional Planning Commission. And so we've been doing this series of workshops, and they are being recorded. And any questions you have, please feel free to ask them in the chat. I will help moderate that. And with that, we are going to get started with our workshop on long-term care ombudsman. And I am going to turn it over to our wonderful volunteer leader, Miss Gina Hitchens. And she is going to do some housekeeping for us and turn it over to our speaker today. So Miss Gina, thanks for joining us and take it away.
Okay, thank you for having me, and good morning, all. I do apologize with tech issues and can't turn my camera on, but you're here to hear Frank and his long-term care expertise. So again, I am Gina Hitchens, AARP Alabama volunteer, and I'd like to welcome you to the presentation. AARP empowers people to choose how they live as they age. AARP is a nonpartisan 501c4 that has over 420,000 members in Alabama alone. AARP's role is to advocate for those 50 plus and their families, regardless of politics. A few things before we get started today. One, as you know, please keep your microphones on mute. And if you have a question for our presenter, please add it to the chat box. And as Dorothy mentioned, she will be monitoring the chat box. And also, please be aware that the presentation is being recorded. So again, thank you so much for attending today. And now I would like to welcome our presenter, Frank Willis. Frank holds a Master's of Sociology and Graduate Certificate in Gerontology from the University of South Alabama. He has worked at the South Alabama Regional Planning Commission Area Agency on Aging for the last 15 years in such positions as case manager for the Elderly and Disabled Medicare Waiver, Medicaid Waiver Coordinator for all Medicaid waiver programs at SARPC/AAA. And now Frank is the ombudsman. Before coming to SARPC AAA, which again is the South Alabama Regional Planning Commission or Area of Agency, Frank was an adjunct professor at the University of South Alabama and taught sociology and gerontology courses. He was also a research assistant with various Alzheimer's and dementia research projects. So as you can see, Frank is well informed and very knowledgeable. So again, sit back and enjoy, and I'd like to welcome Frank. And now it's your turn, Frank.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Gina. I'm happy to be here. As you can see on the slide, my name's Frank Willis. I'm the Regional Ombudsman for Mobile, Baldwin, and Escambia counties, and I'm just one of many ombudsmen across the state. So we're all in here together. Can I have the next slide, please? I understand a lot of people do not know what an ombudsman is, and they don't know if they've ever contacted one. I want to know if anyone has ever contacted the ombudsman before, just to get a kind of general idea of who on this program knows, what we do. Next slide, please. Uh-oh. Just this slide is just basic information. The Older Americans Act established the Ombudsman program, and the word ombudsman just means one that speaks on behalf of another. We resolve all kind of problems and really we answer any questions anytime you have a question. Nursing homes, assisted living, group homes, any other adult care facilities, we try to assist any way that we can. And it's really all about the resident. We want to maximize their well-being, health, and independence, and make sure that their rights are being observed. Next slide, please. Our roles. I can read through every one of these, but I know you can read as well, so I'm just going to summarize. We are companions. We do a lot of visits in the nursing homes. We visit with the residents. We make sure they're okay. We ask them how they're doing, what's going on. A lot of times we advocate for the residents, their friends, their families, their caregivers. We educate. It's surprising how many people are unaware of their rights or their responsibilities. And families a lot of times don't understand policies, so they can call anytime and we'll explain to the best of our ability. We mediate sometimes. If there is a problem or there is just some issue where there's a communication error or misunderstanding, sometimes it's with the phrasing from some policy from local government. Sometimes it's how a policy applies. Sometimes it's something as simple as people don't understand or communicate well with each other. So we discuss it. We will get involved. Especially, again, it all revolves around the resident, their rights, and the care for the resident. And as a broker, a lot of times we get calls where the ombudsman is not necessarily the person to talk to. Sometimes they need information from another resource. We gladly give contact information and connect anyone who contacts us to the best of our ability with a resource that will help them. Next slide, please. We are really responsible under the Older Americans Act to, we identify complaints, we investigate them, we do anything we can on behalf of the resident. We provide information. We try our best to make sure that people are well informed and they know how to navigate the system, how to work within the system. We try everything we can to assist the resident and their caregivers. We always try to represent the residents before governmental agencies, administrators, anything we can do. Now, I believe in the next week or two, there will be a legal session on this Zoom webinar, and that'll address the legal issues. But a lot of times we get calls about legal questions. And again, we try to connect them with the person that can answer them best, whether that is a lawyer or sometimes we can answer the questions. We just do our best to make sure that the residents, their families, and their caregivers, their concerns are addressed. And then we analyze a lot of stuff. We look at the complaints we have or the issues that have been brought to our attention, some good, some bad. And we try to address those, and we contact our local authorities or government administrators at nursing home, whatever we need to do, and try to make changes that are positive for the residents and their families. Next slide, please. We educate a lot in the community, at the facilities, sometimes staff, sometimes members of the public, sometimes lawmakers. We are always talking about what's going on in general. And again, a lot of it is policy or current policy. And sometimes people really don't understand things or the wording's vague. And we have to follow up on that. We have to try to make things as best as we can. And I think overall we do okay. Sometimes outstanding jobs are done by ombudsmen, and there has been positive change directly from ombudsman activities. we also, the next bullet, the second bullet on this page, we do a lot of information about alternatives to nursing homes. And one of the big ones in the state of Alabama is the Gateway to Community Living program, which transfers residents that don't necessarily need to be in a nursing home. Uh-oh, we're skipping around.
I'm sorry, that was my
That's
fault.
okay.
Here we go. Sorry.
Sometimes we can help, or the Gateway program can help people get back into the community, back into a community setting or their home. And it's a very good program. And it connects with some of the waivers across the state for in-home services. And we do a lot of education on that. You see, we do a quality of life survey. We do not just make a referral and basically dump it on someone else's shoulders. When someone goes back into the community from the nursing home, we monitor them. We try to make sure that it is actually working for them to be back in the community. Sometimes it's excellent. Sometimes they need a little more care. Their health situation's changed. And unfortunately, sometimes they end up back in a nursing home no matter what anyone does. We try to promote civic organizations, and we try to promote things within the nursing home as well. We help organize advisory group, family council groups, resident council groups. And it's surprising how many times when the residents or the families get together, there is some issue that's easy enough to address that just has never been addressed. That's where the ombudsman can step in and help them either get organized or direct them to policy that can help them navigate the system, or sometimes we navigate the system for them. And it's all about improving the quality of life, well-being for the residents in long-term care facilities. Next slide, please. Uh-oh, next slide, please. During the pandemic, I received a lot of calls, as I'm sure everyone across the state received. There were all of the visitation restrictions, but we as ombudsman did not stop investigating, contacting, looking into things. We did window visits, we did phone visits, Skype, FaceTime, you name it. In certain situations, we went to the nursing home, had to go in, meet people, full PPE. We investigated whatever needed to be done. We kept our monitoring going as best as we could. And we really got with a lot of residents and staff to address their concerns, to work with them. And now that the regulations and restrictions have lessened some, we're going in more and more. I think that the presence of ombudsman in the long-term care facilities really makes a difference. And I think there's going to be, in fact, I know that there is going to be a lot of change as a result of this pandemic, and it should be changed for the positive. Next slide, please. I put the next two slides up because these are the latest guidance. Now, I wrote updated 316. I believe it was actually updated on 310, but a lot of people have asked questions about these. I put them here because I know that this is being recorded and people can go back and revisit these. Really, the restrictions are loosening some. And there are certain situations that long-term care facilities still have to be cautious about. They can limit the number of visits a day. They can limit, well, they will request that people wear masks and socially distance in most situations. And again, until this pandemic is over, we are still going to be watching out for the residents in the facilities. We want to be sure that they are not at risk and that the families and visitors aren't at risk either. And that includes the staff. Again, I know this is being recorded, so I just put this up here so people can visit this if they want to. Or I could sit here and read the whole thing through, but I don't think anybody really wants to listen to me read nonstop. Next slide, please. Again, this is the oops, I misspelled. I wrote next 2 slides instead of next 2 slides. My apologies. This is the actual wording from the CDC message on quarantine guidance. Again and again, here it is, so you can read through it if you need the actual information. Next slide, please. And this was provided by the Alabama Nursing Home Association. They are really good at forwarding us information the minute it happens. I could really get into discussing this, but again, I think you should read through it if you're interested. And there will be more changes as restrictions lessen. Next slide, please. I have been asked, and I'm sure other people have asked, by residents, by staff, sometimes by administrators at long-term care facilities, what gives ombudsmen authority to come into their facilities and ask the questions we ask, or to get involved in some of the situations. And this is it. Section 712 of the Older Americans Act of 1965. And if you look at the next slide, please. Here's the state of Alabama state law that also addresses how ombudsmen are organized. The Alabama Department of Senior Services oversees us, and that's where the state long-term care ombudsman is located. Again, it is all about assuring the health and well-being of residents in long-term care facilities. Next slide, please. Now, I put these slides in here basically just to show we address, well, policymakers address everything as it changes. As new needs or issues are identified, policy changes to address those issues, and it's going to keep changing. And again, especially since the pandemic, I believe there will be more changes coming. But a lot of this, ombudsmen and their affiliated groups have pushed for change. We've identified issues and pushed for change. And this is just a basic historic overview of the changes that have had and that have occurred because issues have been identified. Next slide, please. And this is more of it. We added in things about supporting civic organizations, identifying problems and establishing statewide reporting systems for complaints, and how to investigate and resolve them. We monitor and help develop and implement federal, state, and local long-term care and policies. And we get into the facilities. I cannot express enough how just being in there, boots on the ground, walking through a facility, seeing with your own eyes makes a difference to the residents. And it allows us to know what's really going on in that facility. And again, I cannot say this enough. It is all about the resident and assuring their health and well-being. Next slide, please. Oh, and here we go. I've been asked multiple times about confidentiality. We take extra careful steps. There is a setup system to protect the residents' identity, all of their complaints, everything, our files. We make sure that we try to address that there is no retaliation if someone complains. Of course, we work in good faith. we don't want to be sued or the state gets sued because we tried to investigate or we did investigate a problems. And the state laws make sure that we are not hampered in our attempts to better the lives of the residents in long-term care facilities. Next slide, please. This is my information. If you need to contact me, please call, either call the numbers online or email me. I've been asked a lot of times, well, when's a good time to call? Why should I call? Anytime is a good time to call. We try to answer calls within 2 business days. And what situation should I call about? Anything you have a question about, whether it's something good, something bad, something you suspect, call us. We will try to help, and usually we can help. I'm not going to promise the world here, but if we can do something, we will do something. And if we cannot do it, we will try to find someone who can. We try our best to answer all of your questions and address all of your concerns. And if you are not in the Mobile, Baldwin, Escambia area, you can find your representative by either emailing or calling AgeLine, and I've got the number here as well. Next slide, please.
All right. And Frank, I'm going to jump in here real quick and say, anybody, if you have questions for Frank, please ask them in the chat. I've put Frank's email address up there, as well as the alabamaageline.gov in the chat. And the poll, I'm going to show the results from the poll here for you, Frank. Can you see those?
I can see those,
Great,
yes.
great. Okay, so and then what I'm going to do is we've got another poll, and this is for anybody who's ever contacted an ombudsman. So you've got a majority who have, and then we're going to start another poll. Let's see here. And after, I think the question is after hearing what an ombudsman does, do you think you need to contact one now? And this is anonymous. So, and while folks are answering that, I'm going to go to the next slide for the state contact here.
I want everyone to be aware that the state long-term care ombudsman is Miss Virginia Bell, and she is in Montgomery. I've put her contact information here as well. A lot of people do not even know about the ombudsman program, and the more educated, the more aware they become. I'm just going to say this is sort of silly, but I get phone calls daily, and I'm sure all the other ombudsmen do, and they can range anything from I ordered string beans for lunch and I got English peas, which may be an issue I need to address because they're not paying attention to menus. And I get questions about residents' rights, and I could really get into that, but basically it boils down to this is their home. They are in a long-term care environment, which is their home. They want to be treated exactly as you would want to be treated in your home. And they should have every bit of information you would want in your life if you were residing at home. It is their home. I'm wondering if there's any questions I'm not seeing.
There is one question. This is a great one from Ms. Simpson. It's is permission needed if the ombudsman needs to look at the client's records?
Technically, no. As long as we are not removing the records from the facility, if it is an investigation of something like abuse or neglect, no.
Okay.
I may be dead wrong, but no.
Yeah. Great question. Great question. And I will say, and this was years ago, lifetime ago. I used to work in a long-term care facility, and I know that when residents when they first came in, we gave them a sheet of their rights. And so, we wanted to make sure that they knew what their rights were and had their rights. And I think that's pretty much a policy for all long-term care. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, Frank, but if you do have a question about resident rights, there should be a list that should be pretty easily available in the long-term care facility. Is that pretty accurate?
That is accurate.
Mhm.
We give out a whole lot of brochures. They're kind of a light purpley lavender. We give them out to residents and to the facilities.
Mhm.
We drop off stacks of them. They're available. I understand most facilities put the actual flyer that we give out, the brochure we give out, in their admission packages. So, and Christmas, I cannot even guess how many Christmas cards were sent out, but I sent out a lot of them and folded one of these up and put it in every card. So
That's
it
great.
has the right information.
That's
Yes, ma'am.
great. And Frank, you mentioned y'all do have volunteer ombudsman. Was that correct? Did I hear that right?
There are some places that do have volunteer ombudsman.
Okay.
Unfortunately, right now, we are needing volunteers at the South Alabama Regional Planning Commission.
Okay.
We have 2, but they've been pretty limited due to COVID. We're just
Right.
now getting back to facilities.
Okay. So are the volunteers able to go back into the facilities now too?
They can visit just like anyone else.
Okay. Great. Great. That's some great information. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for this. This has been really interesting. Can you tell us maybe what are some of the maybe the top 3 most common calls you get, most common concerns you get that get called into the ombudsman? Do you have an idea?
I get a lot of resident right calls.
Mhm.
Usually it's about information. The resident is unsure of something
Mhm.
and there's a communication breakdown somewhere.
Mhm.
I get a lot of calls concerning discharge and admittance,
Mhm.
and I get at least once a week, I get a call questioning about payments and
Mhm.
Social Security. And I hate to say it, sometimes families think nursing homes are free and they refuse to fill out a Medicaid application or provide information.
Mhm.
And sometimes I have to get involved in that.
Mhm.
And that's just a misunderstanding most of the time of the family not understanding that no,
Right.
Medicaid application has to be complete. The nursing homes are not free, and
Mhm.
that you have to provide them information so they can get paid.
Mhm.
And that gets a little bit technical sometimes. And there have been times I've had to refer people to legal services.
Right. Right. Well, it's just so nice to have you there, and it's so great to have ombudsmen in the state, because y'all are there to answer those questions if people aren't sure, and that's wonderful. It's a wonderful service. And I know you have a colleague, Della Sanchez, there. And
Oh, yeah.
that's how Della and I met. When I worked in the long-term care facility, she was the ombudsman. And that's how we got to know each other and become friends. And, dare I say, it's been almost 20 years now. Does that age me too much? We were both in our teens, let's go with that. But it was, what you do is so important to make sure, because with long-term care facilities, even though some of the folks that work there, really do try their best and mean well and have good intentions, some things can slip through the cracks, and like you said, there can be some very simple communication issues that just need to kind of be sorted out. So it's great to have someone like you and your colleagues around the state that do that. So thank you for that.
Oh, you are welcome. I wanted to point out on this screen that the state long-term care ombudsman is Miss Virginia Moore, I'm sorry, Virginia Moore Bell. And she provided a lot of this information, you know, the historical information and things for this presentation. And, you know, Miss Bell is great. If we have an issue or a question, she is on the spot helping any way she can. I think it is the Ombudsman program has a really strong support system. And that's really good for the residents and long-term care facilities.
Absolutely. And just to kind of reiterate, when we talk about long-term care facilities, we're talking about nursing homes. Are we talking about assisted livings as well?
Nursing homes, assisted living, memory care units, licensed group homes. And there's a lot that goes on sometimes. And sometimes it's questionable. Is this group home to be investigated by a long-term care ombudsman? And if not, if they're unlicensed, we'll certainly let the Alabama Department of Public Health know about them. We'll contact, you know, the appropriate people.
Right. And that's so important. So, well, thank you again, Frank, so much. I'm going to pop up the age line number up here. This is, you can reach the area agent. Let me try that again. Area Agency on Aging and the Aging and Disability Resource Center that serves your county. So you can get in touch with them by calling that 1-800-AGE line. There's also the number down below that if you're calling from a cell phone or outside of your county, you can call that. But I'm pretty sure that if you call the 1-800-AGE line, you just tell them what county you're in and they can get you to the right folks. But that is so important. And, you know, Frank is down here in South Alabama, but you know what he talked about is available for all of Alabama. And if you need to locate your area agency on aging, again, you can go to alabamaageline.gov. That's /AAA-locator, and that will get you. It pops up a map. It's really cool. It pops up a map, and you just kind of click on your county, and it'll give you the information that you need for your area. So that's pretty neat. Do we have any other questions? Does anybody have a question they want to put in the chat real quick? No? And Frank, we had our poll, and I'll share those results again. And there's 2 folks that said they do need to contact their ombudsman now. So again, if you are in the South Alabama area, that you can contact Frank. I put his email address in the chat. And if you are not in this area, you can either go to your area agency on aging or contact Miss Virginia Bell. I put her email also as well, and you can get in touch with your local ombudsman. So that is some great information. It's a wonderful service to have. And Frank, just to ask again, these services are free, right? There's no cost. To call the ombudsman.
There is no cost. It is free.
We do get that question with all of these services we've been teaching folks about. You know, I'll get some emails later or have some questions about, you know, are these really free? And it's like, yes, these are free. These are federally and state funded services for those aging and their loved ones. Let's see. Oh, and I'm jumping ahead of myself there. So our next one is going to be on Area Agency on Aging and basically just what they are and what they do. And I believe we're going to have the executive director of the Area Agency on Aging down here, Ms. Julie McGee, is going to be talking about that. So she's going to give us a rundown of what Area Agency on Aging basically do. You know, a lot of them, you know, have all of these services that you can get in touch with folks on and stuff like that. So again, that one is going to be next week. Registration is required for that. So I'm going to put that registration, if I can get to it, into the chat real quick for you. Give me just a second. Here we go. So that is to sign up for that next week. And if you want to look at all of the aging resource workshops that are coming up and the ones that have been in the past, you can go here, and I am working on uploading all of the recordings to our YouTube page. Again, this is kind of new technology for me, so bear with me. But once I have that, when you go to that that email, or that, I'm sorry, that website that I just put down there to register for all of them, it should eventually have where you can click on past ones and get the YouTube link for those as well. So like I said, once I kind of figure out all of my fun video editing and things like that. And as Frank mentioned, we're also going to be having on April 29th, we're going to be talking about legal affairs. And I know, Frank, you had mentioned maybe referring folks to legal affairs sometimes. And so we'll be having that on April 29th. And on April 22nd, we're going to have some folks talking about Medicaid waiver and personal choice programs. So these are programs that are available to folks that are other different services and things like that. More services that are offered. So we'd love to have you join us for those. Frank, did you have any last thoughts or closing comments?
Not really, except to thank for everyone for participating. And if you do email me, please put like contact information in your email. Sometimes your email address won't tell me who you are, so please put your name in it. So I'll at least know who to contact and who I'm talking to.
That's great. Yes. And Frank, we thank you. We thank Ms. Gina as well for introducing you. And Frank, we thank you so much for this information. This has been really informative. I've learned a lot today too. So as long as I've been in this, this career, you would think I'd know all this stuff by the back of my hand, but I've learned something with every one of these resource workshops. So I just want to thank you so much for your knowledge and for what you do. I know it's a tough job. So I know that sometimes when an ombudsman walks into a long-term care facility, the staff isn't always excited to see them. So yeah, so I appreciate what you do as somebody who used to work in a long-term care facility, and actually, like I said, became really good friends with our ombudsman at the time. You are there for the residents, and you're there to make sure that they are living their life with dignity and with all of their rights, and that's a big job. And I really thank you and your colleagues for all you do.
No, thank you. I love what AARP does.
Well, thank you. Well, we'd love to have you back sometime. Maybe we can do a deep dive into resident rights and things like that sometime, Frank. So
I would love to.
We can talk about that at a later date, but you're a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate it. This is recorded, and as soon as I can figure out all of my tech, I will get this up on our YouTube page and send you all out the link. So y'all have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next Thursday.
Thank you.